In my professional life, I'm an artist manager. I manage an artist, a musician by the name of Ben Folds. And I've been working with Ben now for about a dozen years. And when I started working with him, he had um, he had expressed an interest in getting involved in advocacy. He had had a successful music career, but as somebody who grew up in North Carolina to a very much working class family, he always appreciated the fact that having exposure to the arts and music as a kid in school, in public school, really helped kind of shaped who he eventually became and gave him opportunities that he felt like he otherwise wouldn't have had growing up without it. And hearing him talk about that interest and passion, we both decided that we needed to jump into it. And so it was through him that I became interested and aware of Americans for the Arts. I'll say that prior to working with Ben, I spent a good part of my professional career working in and out of politics and government. I've worked at I've worked in the White House, Congress, and the state level and local level over the years, on everything from communications to policy. And so I had an understanding, a basic understanding of how advocacy works in general. And so it was Ben's passion for wanting to get involved and become an advocate for music education and arts education in public schools, and my background and a little bit of knowledge of how government works that led us both to Americans for the Arts. And then one thing led to another. We ended up on the board together of the Arts Action Fund.
That's amazing. As I was saying before, the best gift you can give humanity is time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny. I think back. I didn't really grow up with any kind of exposure to arts or music education. Where I grew up, it wasn't part of the curriculum in the public schools. And where I grew up in Texas and eventually Tennessee. But as any human learns over time, you grow to appreciate how different kinds of art affects every aspect of your life. While I'm not a musician, I've always loved music. While I'm not a painter or a visual artist, I've always loved looking at visual art. There's something that seeing other artists work, it 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 affects your mood. It changes the way you look at things and the way you deal with things and even how you deal with people. And so I've always had this appreciation of art. Just never thought about channeling that appreciation into any kind of advocacy until my world collided with Ben's about a dozen years ago. My avenue, my specific, I guess you'd call it a skill set if it's that, in my profession, the consistent skill set that I've worked on over the years and all the different jobs I've had have been in the area of communication. And um, what I've always found is that art is the purest form of communication. When you step back and think about what art can do, it opens up channels of communication. I mean, I've read about how just the human brain works in very general terms. That when someone has suffered a traumatic brain injury, hearing certain kinds of music reconnects parts of the brain that have been disconnected by the injury. And I think that's true in general in just how we function as humans. I think I know over the years when I've maybe been involved in a project and gotten sideways with somebody that I disagreed with, you can find a common you can find a common bond through music and art. It gives you an opportunity to learn how to communicate with one another. And so I see it as a great communication tool. And I think, to your point, I think it works in any kind of profession you're in, whether you're in a leadership position, whether your job is to help people communicate. Music art is the great equalizer. It helps people from all walks of life find that commonality that connects us as humans. It's interesting when I first started working with Ben in the advocacy arena, I I was struck by how little people understood the economic benefits of art. One of the other hats that I've worn in my career in government, for a time I worked in economic development when I was at the state level in government. And one of the things that you do in economic development is that you always look for those things that assets a community has that allow it to create a multiplier effect that creates jobs, that creates economic opportunity for people that live there or that attract people into an area. And one of the things that we would look for when we were looking to help communities back in my home state with growing their economy or strengthen their local economy is we talk to them about what kind of local assets do you have, and ultimately you come around to the conversation, what kind of cultural assets do you have? Do you have a symphony orchestra? Do you have a local theater? Is there an opera or ballet? Uh, Even down to the public schools, do you have a school orchestra or a marching band? Those kind of things those kind of things lift a community's culture, and to a point where they become attractive to people who want to move there and locate there. Put aside the fact that we know that anyone who has been exposed to art at a young age in schools, they they're better creative or critical thinkers. They're better at solving problems. The evidence is there. The empirical evidence is there. But if you just step back and look at how much a community is richer when you have arts, vibrant arts in a community, diversity of arts in a community, it's so much richer, and it's a great economic multiplier. It draws people in. I remember traveling with Ben when we would travel around the country when he was touring, and at every show he would make a point of talking to the audience about how important it is that they appreciate and support their local arts. And he would say, for example, we're in a theater. This theater probably received some sort of funds from the government through arts grants. And the fact that the theater is here and there's performances here, it draws people to this area, and then you're able to have a coffee shop, and you're able to have a restaurant, and you pay for parking, and all those things generate revenue that supports the local economy. And it starts with an appreciation and embracing the arts and what they mean, not only culturally, but economically to a community. I've always felt, as I've gotten involved in the advocacy side of, of all this, um, what I've come to realize is, as a communicator, the best communicator of what the arts can do and would mean for a community are the artists. And I think sometimes those of us that work in the advocacy field, there's so much attention given, as it should be, to making sure that there are government funds in place to support local, state, and local arts councils, and in turn feed resources into the local artist and arts community. But oftentimes we get caught up in and looking at us as the best messengers, when actually the artists, the people who are most impacted, the people that are the source of this creativity, they're often not heard from. And so I'm excited to see the Arts Action Fund embrace the idea of encouraging artists, local artists, to be advocates for their craft. And a lot of artists don't know even where to start with that. But I think we have a responsibility, those of us that are encouraging this, to help them find ways and help them find their voice and give them a platform, because they're going to be the best communicators. I remember attending a conference some years ago, and Robert Redford, the famous film director and actor, was the host. And I don't remember exactly how it came up, but in one of the conference sessions, people were talking about different ways to communicate how important the arts are and how important it is that they be funded properly at all levels. Um, and I remember, and I'm not going to get this exactly right, but I remember he basically stopped the room when he said, "You got to tell the story. It's the stories." And this is coming from somebody who is a genius and bringing stories to film and television. And he said, the way you win hearts is with the story. And that stuck with me. And fast forward all these years later, um, it finally hit me to the point where I thought, yeah, we need to make a more concerted effort. We, starting with me, make a more concerted effort to find those artists who have the story or who can capture the stories with their art, and let them be the communicators. Let them be the voice for this important mission we're on, which is to talk about why the arts matter. Living in Nashville, Tennessee, I know a lot of songwriters. All a songwriter needs is a good hook. Give them the essence of a story. Give them some kind of a hook, and step back and let them turn that into magic. Let them turn it into something that captures your heart, that pulls you in, that leaves you with a message, that leaves you thinking about something. And again, I think this country, those of us in the advocacy field, the best resource we have for spreading the message are the very artists that are all around us, that we're wanting to support, and we do try to support through our efforts. But I think flipping it and inviting them and encouraging them to be more engaged in the advocacy cause, that's really going to be impactful if we can do that on a national scale. I believe that. The artists that I've talked to about this cause and this mission, the first thing out of their mouth when I talk to them about introduce them to the idea about getting involved and engaged, the first thing they say is, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get engaged. Or they say that I don't really have much to offer. And I think it ends up where you have to have that deeper conversation and explain to them that their gift is their contribution, that what they need to do is take their skills and look at it a different way. Don't change what you do, be you, but but be aware of the mission. And if you give them that information, just that information, and you encourage them to be themselves, what comes out of that is this incredible message that's carried through in music or in paintings or in graphics or whatever their skill sets are. They deliver. I've seen it. And I think but they just need that encouragement. Again, they don't feel like, many of the artists I talk to feel like at the end of the day, no one really cares what they think. That they don't feel like they have a seat at the table. The table was created for them. Everything that this organization is doing is for the artist. It's just convincing the artist that they have a seat at the table. They need to pull that chair up and join the conversation. And again, don't worry about learning anything different. You have the skills. You have what this organization needs, which is your craft, your art. Let's figure out a way to turn that into stories and messages that support the mission. Well, it's an interesting story. So I've known Carrie for a while. I have heard her talk very passionately, one-on-one with me or some of her other artist friends, about how artists need to be more engaged in general. I've heard her say that for years. And it's like a light went off one day, and it's like, wait a minute, what better way to become engaged in this broader discussion than to broach the subject about her stepping into this advocacy world. What really kind of prompted this was when COVID hit. And, as an artist manager in music world, professionally, our world stopped. And I knew so many people. I was on the phone constantly with other managers and artists of all kinds that felt lost. Like, now we don't even have a platform. What do we do now? We have a skill set, but we don't have a way to put it out there to the world. And there was a general, just a very deep depression among so many people that I knew in the artistic community. And that's when that's when the opportunity light bulb went off. It's like, well, right now more than ever, the powers that be need to know what your art means to this country, to your community. They need to hear this. If support and aid and resources are to come to help the artistic community, they've got to hear from you. And you have a voice, you have an instrument. It might be a paintbrush, it might be a guitar, it might be a film camera. You have an instrument. Let's figure out a way to take that instrument and put it to work to help convince the powers that be that the arts matter. So I started having this conversation with Carrie, and it didn't take much. I didn't have to twist any arms. She got it right off the bat. She went from just generally talking about how we should be more engaged as artists to, wait a minute, you mean I can actually pick up my paintbrush and make a difference? And so I invited her to come up here to one of the meetings I was attending of the Arts Action Fund. And I didn't put too hard a push on her. I just wanted her to be around the organization and the leadership of this organization, because I knew once she heard from them and saw their passion for her community, that it would inspire her and connect the dots in her head. And that's exactly what happened. She came away from that first meeting up here in Washington just absolutely head over heels, wanting to learn more about what can she do, and is there really a place for me in advocacy? Wow, there could be. And so we put together the resources to commission her to take on this project. And what's been really particularly makes me happy is that we were able to marshal the resources to give her an assignment and then get out of the way, because that's the key. The people in the advocacy world, that are people that are interacting with government, that are looking at the numbers, that are looking at the policy issues, we need to empower the artistic community with the mission and with some resources, and then get out of their way and let them channel their art and support the mission. And that's what's been amazing to watch is I never envisioned where Carrie would take this project. And I'm glad I didn't, because I probably would have tried to, if I thought about it, put her in a certain category of, well, maybe do this. Instead, everyone in the organization, board member and others, just said, you know what? You know what the mission is now. You know what this organization is trying to do. Bring your skill sets to the table. What can you do with that? And this whole 50 state, 50 different original paintings, deep diving into what makes the arts in each state, spending countless hours on the phone with artists or people from the arts councils in these different states. learning and then doing independent research, even more countless hours aside from the calls, going on the internet, looking up these places, looking at hours of video about what's going on in this community or that community. She just dove deep into that world to better understand what was really happening with the arts in certain states. And then once she learned that, then she would just step back with her paintbrush, and the artistic talent would come through. All the information she had gathered would be channeled through the paintbrush onto the canvas. Um, Again, it's a beautiful thing to watch, but that's the way it should work. What we as advocates with the Arts Action Fund and with Americans for the Arts, what we should do is empower the artist, give them the resources they need, and then get out of their way and let them do their magic.